All right, what's up, guys? The Snowman here, night 2 of my 2022 tennis preview talk. Today we're focusing on the women. Please check out my men's preview as well. It's already been posted, but focusing on the women tonight, I'm going to go through the top 30 of the women's rankings and kind of just take stock, make some predictions, but look back on the 2021 season as well, how some of those players did last year, and talk about what I expect for them this season, though. Please, if you're on the live, ask questions. I'd love to answer anything. And again, check out my ATP preview as well. But let's focus on the women tonight. And before I get to the number one player in the world, just want to kind of talk about in general how there really seems to be a surplus of parity on the WTA Tour. We've had all 4 majors won in 2021 by 4 different ladies. We also had a 5th different lady, Belinda Bench, winning the Olympics, and then with Garbiñe Muguruza winning the WTA final. So all of the big tournaments last year were kind of sprinkled around and spread out. There wasn't really one dominant force on the women's side. We had 6 players make their top 10 debuts last year, and in the past 5 years, 14 different women have won a major. In the last 19 majors, 14 different women have won them. On the men's side, there's only 5 champions in the last 19 majors. You can guess those are the big 3, Dominic Thiem, Daniil Medvedev. So a lot more parity on the women's side. 7 of the 10 active multi-Grand Slam champions are 30 or older. We've got Serena Williams, who's out of the Australian Open, Venus, Svetlana Kuznetsova, Angelique Kerber, Azarenka, Kvitova, Halep. Only Osaka, Barty, and Muguruza are under the age of 30, so there's lots of fresh blood all over the map. The U.S. Open just a few months back featured the first ever major final between 2 unseeded players, between Layla Fernandez and Emma Raducanu. So it's a rich field. It's a very wide open field. That's why I think there's a lot of possibilities heading into this season. And if you've got to put your money somewhere, the world number 1, Ash Barty, is as sure as a bet as they come on the women's side. In terms of Barty, I wasn't necessarily drinking the Kool-Aid a couple of years ago, but Barty has quietly built an all-time great resume. She's only 25 years of age, but 2-time major champ last summer, defeating Karolina Plishkeva for her first Wimbledon title. And there's some incredible number 1 ranking stats with Barty. She just picked up her 3rd year-end number 1 ranking, though. Only Steffi Graf, Martina Navratilova, Chrissy Everett, and Serena Williams and Lindsay Davenport have more. So only 5 women have finished the year number 1 more than Barty. She's got 109 total weeks at number 1, but consecutively she's at 102 weeks and counting. That is an active streak, and the all-time record is 186 in terms of consecutive weeks at number 1. Both Graf and Serena were number 1 for 186 weeks for their longest tenure. I think Ash has a legit shot at beating that streak. Can she remain number 1 for a year and a half? There's question marks all over with the other top players. Naomi Osaka, we'll get to her, but some mental health issues. She missed a lot of time last season. Serena Williams, certainly age and attrition is a big factor for her. Ribakina, players like her, lack of experience. Others have consistency, a major problem. So Ash has really earned that number 1 ranking, and she may never have a ceiling like Osaka and Muguruza, but consistency on all 3 surfaces is unmatched. And that's why I think she does have a great shot of extending that number 1 streak, because she's so potent on hard court, on grass, on clay as well. At some point, you've got to give her due. And Barty, she's rightly the number 1 player heading into this season. A lot of pressure always on her heading into Melbourne, the Australian Open, her home slam. Will she deliver this year? She was upset the last couple of years, semifinals last year to Karolina Muchova. That was a shock. The year before in the quarterfinals. So we'll see if she can take it a step further, make the final of the Australian Open. But it's a great outlook for sure for the 25-year-old. Number 2 in the world is Irina Sabalenka, the Belarusian. On paper, it was a sensational season. I mean, 3rd most wins overall, 45 and 18 was the record. And she finally broke through at the majors. Sabalenka, that was the big monkey on her back. Had never been, I think, past the 4th round at a major. But semifinals at Wimbledon, semifinals at the U.S. Open as well. a huge title in Madrid, defeating number one Ash Barty in the final. But here's the telling stat for me when it comes to Irina Sabalenka. She was 3-14 after losing the first set in 2021. So Sabalenka, she is a tremendous front runner, a fantastic 2-set record, but a very poor 3-set record. She has difficulty sustaining a high level for those 2.5, 3 hour long matches. Both of those major semifinals, she kind of blinked at the end. I was just rewatching that U.S. Open semifinal today against Fernandez. She came marching out of the gates up 4-1, up an early break in the first set, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's like love 40, and then she gets broken. And she's got to do a better job though of sustaining her high level throughout the course of Grand Slams and throughout the course of long matches. It's all mental for her, I believe. If she cleans up some of those errors, she led the tour in double faults last season with 326. So got to clean it up. Again, I don't really trust Sabalenka in those long 3-set matches. I don't think this is the year that she wins her first major, despite a lot of people kind of picking her as a spicy pick. But I would say Sabalenka doesn't win her first major this season, but she's the number 2 player in the world. Number 3, I'm a little bit more optimistic about, and that is Garbiñe Muguruza, 42-17 in 2021. 3 titles, and it's just so nice to see Mugu back at the top of the game. Nice to see her this high in the rankings again. She defeated the white-hot Annette Kantavite to cap the season by winning the WTA finals in Guadalajara. And this is where Mugu belongs. I mean, for her to finish the last 3 seasons 15, 36, and 18 just makes no sense to me. She is a top 5 player through and through. I spoke about Barty's consistency on all 3 surfaces. Well, Muguruza is a player who's been to a Grand Slam final on hard court, and she's won the French Open, she's won Wimbledon, so she can get it done on all 3 surfaces too. She should be contending for all the Grand Slams this year. Last 2 Australian Opens, lost in the 2020 final to Cannon, and then last year had match points against Osaka in the 4th round. I really felt like whoever won that match was going to go on to win the whole thing, and of course, Naomi did, but Muguruza was so close, and I actually think Muguruza is going to be Barty's biggest threat this year to finish for that year-end number 1 because of the play, again, on all surfaces. I'm expecting a huge season for her, perhaps a 3rd Grand Slam title. We want to see Muguruza-less. That's, when she's confident, when she's using her experience and her hunger and her God-given talents, and Muguruza is an unstoppable force, and it seems like her personal life has kind of been stabilized now. She's in a good relationship, and Conchita Martinez, they have a fantastic player-coach relationship, so all things are clicking for Muguruza. She ended the season strong last year, and I definitely could see her winning another Grand Slam in 2022. Maybe not so for Karolina Plishkeva, the number 4 woman in the world. Some sad news. Plishkeva did injure her right hand in practice last week, so she's going to be out all of the month of January, including the Australian Open, and that ends her streak of 35 consecutive Grand Slam main draw appearances. That was the 4th longest active streak. Kiki Mladenovic at 38, Kerber's at 48, and then Elisa Cornet at 59. Cornet, she's actually closing out on the all-time record, Cornet is. But Plishkeva is still an excellent second half of the 2021 season. Had that second major final at Wimbledon, at least the semifinals of every other major in her career. That was certainly a wild Wimbledon final. If not for a couple of low-energy moments, I really felt like she had Ash Barty on the ropes. It seems like Plishkeva is playing a more well-rounded game under Coach Sasha Bijan. She's all of a sudden hitting like running backhands down the line. It's not just a serve bot anymore for Plishkeva. She's got a little bit more variety, a little bit of a nice touch at the net. So I've seen some pretty nice improvements in Plishkeva's game over the last 18 months. But again, unfortunately, that right hand injury will keep her out for a little bit at the start of this year. Top 5 then, number 5, Barbara Krijkova. And Krijkova is, for me, what makes the WTA fun in comparison to the men's tour, the unpredictability of it. I mean, Krijkova started the season last year ranked 65 on absolutely nobody's radar, and all of a sudden she's a star. A relatively late bloomer at age 25. She wins her first 3 singles titles last year, including Roland Garros, out of nowhere. I don't know how you predict that. The ATP is fun because of the dueling legends, so many living legends with the big 3 and Murray and Wawrinka and Del Potro, but the WTA produces like multiple new stars every single season. Krijkova, she's got a great double skill set, the powerful serve, good power on the baseline as well, and the volleying skills. Really experienced player there. So Krijkova, she's definitely going to be a threat again on clay, and I don't think that was just a one-hit wonder for her last year. Maybe she doesn't finish top 5 again, but she seems like a top 15 player for at least the next 5 to 7 years. Again, going through the top 30 of the WTA rankings here as we prepare for the 2022 season, which starts in just a couple of days. ATP Cup and then a bunch of the Australian Open preliminary tournaments begin this weekend. So I'm very excited that live tennis is going to be back again soon. But let's continue with the top 30 rankings here. Number 6 is the Greek Maria Sakkari, who had 6 top 20 wins in Grand Slams in 2021. She had some fantastic runs, making the semifinals of the French Open, semifinals at the US Open as well. And that French Open run, it was Elisa Mertens in the 3rd round, Cannon, and then the defending champ Iga Swiatek in the quarterfinals. Semifinals, it was Kvitova, Andrescu, and that match was awesome against Andrescu. Bibi had just beaten her in Miami earlier in the year, and that was a sensational match too, but they only play great matches, those two. And then Sakkari also got the best of Plishkeva in the quarterfinals. I think her game has a super high floor, but she did tense up a bit against Krijkova in the semifinals in Paris. She admitted that, I got stressed. It was a rookie mistake. So she's a player who needs those growing pains. We see it all the time with players. You've got to kind of take some lumps. If you don't have, Stefanos Tsitsipas as well, a fellow Greek, he had to kind of take it on the chin at the French Open last year too. But it's only going to bode well for Sakkari moving forward, who's one of the hardest workers in the gym. She's a gym rat, an athletic specimen, a fantastic mover, and her prospects certainly high as well. Number 7, Annette Kantavite, who finished with a flurry to cap the 2021 season. Spectacular run at the end of the year, 26-2 and 4 titles over a 10-week span leading up to the WTA finals. 26-2, and she was able to qualify as the 8th seed, and all that success coincided with her hiring of Dmitry Tursunov, who was previously with Irina Sabalenka. Kantavite, pretty similar to Rublev for me if you watch my ATP preview. From the back of the court, it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, gorgeous textbook power forehand. Kantavite can boss it from the back of the court, but she must keep working on all around parts of the game, the net game, ending points a little bit quicker, her second serve, defense in and out of the corner. She's got to become a little bit more versatile in her skill set. But if we're going solely off of how 2021 ended, I do think Kantavite is the favorite in Melbourne. The bookies probably have her 4th, 5th, or 6th. But she's playing with a lot of confidence right now. So she could be a scary kind of a semi-dark horse contender for some of the players who don't know all the players at the top of the game. Number 8 is Paula Bedosa. It was a groundbreaking year for the Spaniard. I really enjoyed watching her, one of 6 ladies who debuted at the WTA finals. Bedosa, a tour best 17-3 record on clay. So she is a beast on the dirt. That's where she makes her living. Truly an all-court threat, though. Round of 16 appearance at Wimbledon. She had the breakthrough title at Indian Wells, where she beat Coco Goff, Barbara Krijkova, Kerber, Ons Jabeur, and a scintillating final against Vika Azarenka. They were trading haymakers back and forth. Bedosa did emerge victorious 7-6 in the 3rd. One of the best matches of the year. Those were some grueling rallies, and Bedosa just didn't blink in those 2 tiebreakers. She hit some just huge balls at the most important times. She's a bold shot maker, a pretty improved server as well from my observations. Probably a future Roland Garros champion is Bedosa. And I was looking at the early odds for the French Open this year. Somehow, Bedosa just has the 14th best odds to win the 2022 French Open, which honestly kind of shocked me. There's players like Coco Goff, Ribakano, Sakkari, even Bianca Andrescu are all ahead of her in the odds. Andrescu just has a single match career win at the French Open, so that was a little odd to me. I think she should probably be the top 5 on those odds because she had a really good run last year, made the quarterfinals, and kind of had a little mental block there, but a 10-3 record against top 20 opponents over the past season. She's a big match player. Think like Stan Wawrinka. She comes in like a wrecking ball. Bedosa very good on the clay especially, but all surfaces as well. Speaking of the Roland Garros odds, let's talk about the 2020 French Open champion. That is Iga Swiatek, another elite clay court player. And Swiatek, actually, she is number one in those French Open odds at plus 450. Upset last year in Paris by Sakura in the quarterfinals, but the only woman to make at least the round of 16 at the past 4 majors throughout 2021. So some very good consistency there by the Pole. It was kind of a sour end to the season. She wasn't 100% physically at the WTA finals, but Iga's going to be back strong. It's a brutal brand of tennis that she plays on clay. Dictates play with that heavy forehand, pretty similarly to her idol Rafa Nadal. That's the outlook on Swiatek. Number 10, Ons Jabeur, one of 6 players from the Abu Dhabi exhibition tournament who tested positive for COVID. I think Jabeur wasn't doing too bad in good spirits, and just mild symptoms for her. But 3 on the men's side, 3 on the women's side did pick up COVID while playing that tournament in Abu Dhabi. So hopefully she can still play at the Australian Open. I'm talking about number 10, Ons Jabeur. Just a couple of months ago, though, she became the first Arab player ever to be in the top 10 of either the ATP or the WTA rankings, so some history for there. A very unique blend of power and finesse. Any of you guys, if you watch Jabeur, you know this. I don't know what it is about Ons, but anytime one of my favorite players is going up against her, I'm always just afraid. It's like Shea Su Wei, but with power as well. The only player I could think of is honestly Andrescu, because Andrescu possesses that great forehand, but also such a delicate drop shot and supreme variety as well. That's really Jabeur's game. So she's got a classy drop shot in the Arsenal quarterfinals at Wimbledon last year. Her ceiling probably is a slam semi. Wouldn't shock me if the Tunisian made a deep run, though, at Wimbledon or the French Open or even the US Open, making a slam semifinal. Number 11 in the rankings, then, as we turn the page here, number 11, Anastasia Pavlichenkova. She broke a big duck last year, broke a bad streak for her. She was 0-6 in major quarterfinals before last season's French Open, and that was where she outlasted Elena Ribakina 9-7 in the third set to break that duck. Ended up making the French Open final. A great run for a player who's kind of hovered in the mid-20s of the rankings for the past decade, but her peers really respect her. Pretty big ball hitter. Pavlyuchenkova also picked up a gold medal last season playing mixed doubles with Andrei Rublev in Tokyo, so she's got the doubles prowess as well. Going to a bit of an X factor now. Number 12 on the list is Sophia Cannon. Definitely a disappointing season for the former Aussie Open champ. A litany of injuries, from the appendectomy to getting COVID to a foot injury that forced her out since Wimbledon. Just 11-10 overall in 2021. And it definitely wasn't a good year, but Cannon's probably one of the few people who look back on the year 2020 fondly, and she remembers it with great memories, obviously picking up that maiden Grand Slam title at the Australian Open, also making the final at Roland Garros, losing to Iga Swiatek. But she's a key X factor for the 2022 season. I spoke about Dominic Thiem last night and how big of an X factor he is. If he comes back healthy and looking somewhat of the same player we saw in 2020. Same goes for Cannon and a couple of these other women who we didn't get to see too much last year, players like Simona Halep and even Naomi Osaka, who I'm about to get to in a sec. But Cannon, definitely a major X factor. The movement and the defense is among the tour's best when healthy. Always so impressed with Cannon's ability to kind of reset play. She could be out of position. She could be deep in a corner, but great lobs, great defensive squash shots to kind of get herself out of trouble and always reset the play back to zero. She's a master at that. Number 13, we have Naomi Osaka, one of the biggest names in women's tennis, the 4-time Grand Slam champion. And to be honest, I don't really even know how to summarize the 2021 season for Naomi. She was 18-6 overall didn't play too much. That's still a great winning percentage, but let's start with the good. She picked up her 4th major title at the Australian Open about a year ago this time, or 11 months ago. That key match was the round of 16 battle against Muguruza that I spoke of earlier, saved 2 match points, and I mean, that was the key stepping stone. I felt like Muguruza was the only player who could go toe-to-toe with a truly 100% Osaka and come out the other side alive. But as we saw last season, Naomi kind of not afraid to shake up traditional norms. She made a statement, she withdrew from Roland Garros because the French Federation, threatened to kick her out following her press boycott. Naomi made a statement saying she wouldn't be attending press conferences in Paris. She stated severe mental health and depression, wrote a letter explaining her anxiety and her stress when dealing with the media, but of course nobody listened. Didn't play Wimbledon, taking some personal time with her friends and family. Heavy scrutiny, though, all summer long is what Osaka faced, and then just didn't have great rhythm in New York at the U.S. Open, upset against Layla Fernandez in the 3rd round. And I'll keep it mostly tennis-based, but it just kind of frustrates me that Osaka is trying to communicate with us, and she's trying to make this statement as an icon, as a global icon in the sport of tennis, and we just kind of shut her out. I mean, we shut her out. Like, why is our first instinct to threaten Osaka, to call her a quitter? It's the same thing with Simone Biles at the Olympics. Like, I don't know. I think we all need to do a little bit better job of just listening before we kind of respond to these athletes who are under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure. And these are individual sports as well. I mean, Naomi doesn't have any teammates to kind of pick her back up when she's having a bad day. So I think all in all, I'm happy that she's kind of bringing it to the forefront. I've seen Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, they've kind of been the flame bearers or the flag bearers for mental health talk in the NBA. I think it's great because different people go through all different sorts of mental obstacles in their life. So, I think she's a great leader in the sport. And at the end of the day, Osaka, she's got a major title in each of the last 4 years. So great consistency. She's still going to be the number 1 player to beat, though, at a hard court Grand Slam tournament if she's up to it, if she's feeling right. It's all about her. Like I said, there's a couple of players like Muguruza, Andrescu, maybe Ash Barty, Plishkeva, whoever. There's a few players who can kind of, they've got a chance on any given day, but for the most part, Osaka is always going to be the favorite, especially on a hard court. But lots of unknown with her form, especially early on in 2022. She's probably going to have to work her way back into the swing of things, but I certainly wouldn't bet against Naomi Osaka this year. Number 14 is Elena Ribakina. She's a fun young player. She's got a lot of offensive tools. The stats bode really well in Ribakina's favor. Top 5 in ace percentage, first service points won, hold percentage. Her serving, her offensive metrics are great. She's got some powerful flat groundies. Her biggest improvement, though, needs to be endurance and stamina. Ribakina, I think she's like 6 feet tall. She's got a lot of power, but she ran out of gas in the tank multiple times in 2021. In fact, her 4 biggest losses at the majors and at the Olympics. So Roland Garros quarterfinals against Pavlichenkova, she loses 7-9 in the 3rd. Wimbledon round of 16 against Sabalenka. That was a big battle of bruisers, and Ribakina went down 3-6 in the 3rd. Olympic semifinals against Bencic, 3-6 in the 3rd. And then the U.S. Open 3rd round against Halep. And that was probably the most telling one. Again, 3-6 in the 3rd. So I want to see Ribakina kind of outlast opponents in 2022. It's a similar issue to Sabalenka. They can't all be 6-3, 6-3 wins. So how do you win when adversity strikes? I hope she's been working on the conditioning and kind of the mental fortitude just to stay in the battle longer when it gets to those grueling 2.5 hour matches that you're going to have to play late in Grand Slams. She's a player who can absolutely contend for Grand Slam titles, especially in quicker conditions. In the heat down under at the Australian Open, Ribakina can be lethal with the right elements, with the right situation. But she's got to continue to work on that part of her game because they can't all be blowout wins. As we transition here from Elena to Elina, Number 15, Elena Svitolina. Pretty weird season for one of my favorite players. A bit underwhelming by her lofty standards. Ending the year at number 15 in the rankings. Her lowest year-end rankings since 2015. Just one slam quarterfinal. That was in New York. And she, the big news for her, split with her longtime coach, Andy Bettles, but she got married to Gael Monfils and won a bronze medal at the Olympics, and she's always motivated, always professional. I want her to be more aggressive in the critical points, though. Svitolina moving forward this year, she tends to be a pusher, tends to resort to defense, and her opponents making mistakes late in the matches. Sometimes that becomes too predictable. I don't like the idea of her always having to rely on opponents' mistakes when it comes to the business end of tournaments. It's kind of similar to Angelique Kerber, and we've seen with Kerber, she's won Grand Slams, but she's also had some pretty serious lulls, some slumps throughout her career, because when you don't take the initiative, you're at the complete mercy of your opponents. Tends to be, create some peaks and valleys. So Svitolina, she's got to keep it at the forefront of her mind. I mean, she's always going to be a hard worker. She's going to run her tail off and play some excellent defense, but I'd like to see Svitolina be more aggressive in the critical points. Speaking of Angelique Kerber, she is number 16 in the rankings, and Kerber, you talk about, weird season. There was mid-season whispers for Kerber last year that the 33-year-old German was considering retirement. I mean, she got knocked out of the first round at both the Australian Open and at Roland Garros, but then the grass court season came around, and all of a sudden she wins a grass court title in Germany at Bad Homburg. She makes the semifinals at Wimbledon, semifinals of Cincinnati as well, and solid runs at the U.S. Open and Indian Wells too. She's playing her typical airtight defense with opportunistic offense, and as long as her movement stays elite, she can play however long she wants. She's got the heart of a champion. It's always great to see Kerber around, so we'll see. I mean, semifinals of Wimbledon last season, I think she can get back to a Grand Slam semi this year as well. Number 17 in the rankings then is the player from the Czech Republic, Petra Kavitova. Her form dropped off a bit last year, just 4-4 at the majors. She had kind of a freak ankle injury that caused her to withdraw from Roland Garros. I think she didn't even pick up that ankle injury on the tennis court. She fell awkwardly as she was leaving like a media session, so that was just a weird thing. On the right day, though, she can still blast anyone off the court. I do sense at age 31, though, unfortunately, her best tennis might be behind her. Kind of what I was saying with Ribakina. For Kvitova, the elements have to be right. I mean, she doesn't want the heat, though. She wants a cool day. She wants more like indoor conditions, low wind. She needs ideal ball hitting conditions for her to stay out there a long time. So on the right day, she can still get it done, but the two-time Wimbledon champ, probably her best days behind her. Not the case for number 18, the second American in the rankings, Jess Pegula. A stellar breakout season in 2021, super consistent. Her first major quarterfinal achieved at the Aussie Open, reached 4 more quarters at the WTA 1000 events. So very consistent play from Pegula. Some blockbuster upsets along the way, and the highest break percentage on the tour at 47%. So it's always obviously a good weapon if you can break opponent's serve. Number 19 became one of the biggest sensations at the end of the season last year. That is the teenager Emma Raducanu from Great Britain. And before I get to what she accomplished last year, she does have COVID as well right now. She picked it up at that exhibition tournament in Abu Dhabi. So we'll monitor her situation. Might not be able to play any preseason or any of the preliminary tournaments in Australia, but hopefully we see Raducanu at the Aussie Open. She's high up in the odds there. But let's go over some of her accomplishments. I mean, the ranking skyrocketed. She started this year, last time this year, Raducanu was ranked 343, and now she's at 19 in the world. Just extraordinary. She ended Great Britain's 44-year drought for a women's Grand Slam singles champ by winning the 2021 U.S. Open. And there's 4 stats from that incredible run that jump out to me. First of all, it was just her second Grand Slam tournament ever. So she's the fastest woman ever in that regard to win a Grand Slam title. Even Monica Seles and Bianca Andrescu, they needed 4 Grand Slams to win their first title. Ribakina only needing 2. Secondly, she's just the 15th teenage woman to win a major. Number 3, this is probably the biggest one, the first qualifier ever, man or woman, to reach a Grand Slam final, let alone win the whole thing. And then 4th, she didn't drop a set along the way. That is very rare that you see that at Grand Slams, somebody not dropping a set en route to the title. We've seen it in the last 40 years only by a couple of players on the men's side. You can guess Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal. On the women's side, it does happen a bit more frequently. You're only playing best 2 out of 3 set matches, so it does happen more frequently. We saw it with Iga Swiatek at the French Open last year. Serena's done it a handful of times. Bartoli, Justine Henin, but still, Ribakina, I don't understand. The media kind of treats her weirdly, though. For some reason, everyone's got an opinion on Ribakina. People seem to think she's overrated or she's focusing too much on the endorsements. She's got a long list of endorsements already. It's kind of similar to Osaka's breakout a couple of years ago. Vodafone, British Airways, Evian. Maybe it's because she's such a likable teenager. She speaks English, Mandarin, Romanian. I read an article the other day that projects Ribakina as potentially the first ever billionaire women's athlete. So she's got a lot of things going for her, but it's ridiculous. People saying she's too focused off the court, or it's just one tournament that she won. I don't care even if she doesn't win more than 10 matches in 2022. She's still so far ahead of the curve to be a Grand Slam champion at age 18. Like, why are our standards so high for her? I mean, she is just, it's ridiculous. So I think, let's get off her back a little bit. She's the BBC Sports Personality of the Year for a reason. Personally, I think she's just going to be fine. She did have some choppy form at the end of last season, but her life was changing. I mean, that's got to be a whirlwind for her. I think we're a little bit too fast to kind of crucify these young athletes that break through on the scene so quickly. Ribakina, I'm excited to see the encore performance this year. Even if she can just make a few 3rd or 4th rounds at the majors, again, she's still going to be so far ahead of the curve. Great things coming for the Brit. Number 20 is Simona Halep, one of the living legends on the women's side of the game, still playing. And I mentioned that Sophia Cannon, a pretty big X factor this year. Simona Halep too. I mean, serious calf injury did keep her out all of summer long. No Roland Garros, no Wimbledon, no Olympics as well. She tried to rush the return, and that kind of made things worse for Halep. She had a right adductor strain that had her less than 100% for the U.S. Open, but it was kind of an extremely tough time for the 2-time major champion. Just had no rhythm at all, kind of like Osaka, but I expect a bounce back year. Some people are projecting her as maybe back to the Roland Garros final. I could definitely see that, but we'll kind of see how she is feeling these first couple of months. I do expect it to take some time, but Darren Cahill, or actually I'm not 100% sure if Darren Cahill is still in her coaching box, but she knows how to get it done. I mean, she's got so much experience and will to win on her side. Number 21, Elisa Mertens. Very quality game. I always kind of liken her as like the female Diego Schwartzman. Superb consistency, though, from Mertens. Great rallier from the back of the court. She's got a slam semifinal under her belt. Mertens has made at least, this is a great stat in her favor, Mertens has made at least the 3rd round at the past 15 majors. And I ain't go through everyone, but I think she probably stands alone. I mean, I checked Svitolina, but even she's had a couple of clunkers at Wimbledon in the last couple of years. So I would guess, I mean, if you guys can figure out another women's player who's been to at least the 3rd round at the past 15 majors, I'll send you something in the mail. I will give you a prize personally from the Snowman if you can tell me someone who has made at least the 3rd round, because I think Mertens is the only one. And again, I didn't fact check that, but I'm pretty sure. So honestly, the consistency is fantastic for Elise Mertens. Number 22, trying to get my paper straight here. Number 22 is Coco Goff, who Coco kind of finds herself in an interesting position now. She's somehow seems to be under the radar a little bit. all the buzz after her run at the 2019 Wimbledon Championships, upsetting Venus Williams. She was the 15-year-old phenom. Everybody was really in her corner. But I think with Ribakina and Fernandez both being teenagers as well, they kind of stole some shine at the U.S. Open, how both of them marched onto that U.S. Open final. And personally, I think it's great for Coco that she's coming in with a little bit less pressure now. She's still only 17 years of age, so I don't even think she's going to be playing a full schedule that most of the other professionals are going to be playing. But at age 17, the top-ranked player younger than Coco Goff is all the way up at 264 in the world. So I mentioned that Ribakina is obviously way ahead of the curve. No doubt Coco as well. But her game continues to improve. Quietly had a fantastic 2021 season. First WTA 1000 semifinal appearance in Rome. First Slam quarterfinal at Roland Garros. Improvements, but second serve still continues to be an issue. It's a bit erratic with the ball toss. She's got to, the double fault rate is a little bit high for my liking. I'd like to see Coco work on that aspect of her game. But the movement, the defense, the first serve, and certainly, did I say the backhand? The backhand, all those things are world class. And again, I just love that the media is not going to be perhaps fangirling so much over Coco Goff. Maybe for the first time in 2.5 years, she's going to have a little bit less pressure on her. So that's great for the 17-year-old. Number 23 is Belinda Bench. Unfortunately, some deja vu for Bench. She had the hard quarantine at the start of last season, and now she's got COVID. She was at that tournament in Abu Dhabi, our sixth and final player who picked up COVID there. So it was a very tough first half for her in 2021. Bencic, she lacked a lot of rhythm, and especially for a player like her, Bencic's game is so timing based. She takes the ball very early on the rise, tries to take time away from her opponents. So if her rhythm is even a little bit off, it's kind of exaggerated as compared to some other players on the tour. She was able to find her groove though, and the ultimate career highlight for Bencic, winning Olympic gold in the women's singles tournament, 4 3-set matches to clinch it. Also picked up a silver medal in women's doubles with Victoria Golubic. And she just played well though late in the season. Bencic quarterfinals in Cincinnati and the U.S. Open too. I think she's going to be back near the top 10 very soon. Bencic was a top 10 player just a couple of years ago, was at the WTA finals. Pencil her in though as at least top 15 by the end of the season if she stays healthy. Number 24 then, continuing up and down the WTA rankings here. Number 24 is Layla Fernandez, who had that magical run to the U.S. Open final just a handful of months ago. And she had a much harder path than her fellow teenager, Ribakina. Fernandez, if you don't remember, she had to go through Osaka in the third round. She had to go through the former U.S. Open champ, Angelique Kerber. She had to go through Svitolina and then Sabalenka in the semifinals. And they were all 4 of those matches were 3-setters, and all 4 she had to win tiebreakers. So that tells me she's got a whole lot of grit to her game. She's not afraid of the big stage. She plays some fearless tennis. She's got that lefty swag, the young Canadian. Finds those short angles, and those are so difficult to deal with because they either bounce before you can get to them, or they push you so far off the court that she can just hit easy winners then on the next shot. Oftentimes, players aren't used to playing against left-handers since there's so few of them on the tour. I mean, I think only 20% of the world's population is left-handed. So Layla Fernandez, also a breath of fresh air with the post-match interviews. She's just an all-around great person for women's tennis. So we'll see what she can do kind of as her encore after her breakout year last year. And I'm going to get to number 25, Jennifer Brady, in a sec. I see we have a comment here. Who's the GOAT? That's a very good question. I'm talking women's tennis tonight, but I'm assuming you're talking men's tennis. I'll answer women first since women's tennis, it's a little bit easier. The answer is Serena Williams, definitely the greatest of all time. She's got the most major titles at 23. I don't count Margaret Court and her 13 pre-Open era majors where she was playing against, part-time mail delivery women or whoever she was playing against. Don't give me that. Serena definitely the best on the women's side. I will say Steffi Graf, though, the most dominant women's player of all time. Some of the things she was doing in the late 80s and early 90s Graf was built different too. But if you are talking about the men's GOAT, I will say that as of right now, the numbers are starting to lean in Djokovic's favor. It's certainly this run of the past couple of years. I'm a devout Federer fan, so it's always going to be a little bit hard for me to admit that. I think if Djokovic wins a 21st major, I would definitely have to say without a shadow of a doubt that Novak Djokovic has the greatest resume of all time. I'm never going to call him the GOAT, but I'll say he has the greatest resume of all time. But right now, as long as those guys are still all locked at 20 Grand Slams, Fed, Nadal, and Djokovic, I don't know. I think it's pretty close. I know Djokovic, he's got the most weeks at number one now. He's got the most Masters 1000 titles, and a lot of other accolades are in his favor. But Federer certainly has the longevity. He's got the most career wins out of those three guys. Still chasing Connors for that, but he's got over 100 titles. Nadal certainly the dominance on one surface. But I think it's Federer or Djokovic, and I'm leaning towards saying Djokovic's resume is a little bit more impressive, but Djokovic still certainly has plenty left in the tank. I think Rafa Nadal probably has a few good years left in him as well, and hopefully our man Roger Federer has maybe a year left in him too once he gets healthy, maybe this summer. So that's a great question though. Who's the GOAT? Let's continue with number 25 in the women's rankings. We've got Jennifer Brady. Another funky season for her. It started out with so much promise, reaching the Australian Open final, losing to Osaka. That was coming off the heels of making the semifinals at the US Open, another tournament there where she ended up losing to Naomi Osaka. And I predicted her leaping into the top 10 over the course of last season, but a bone bruise kept her off the court. She's played just 2 whole matches since Roland Garros. That foot injury has her set to miss the Australian Open. Might return in March, but we certainly hope for better health upcoming in the future for Brady. Number 26 in the rankings, Daria Casakina, the Russian. She rekindled a bit of magic last year after a slump. I remember watching Casakina in the 2018 Indian Wells final against Naomi Osaka, and we thought that it was going to be Osaka and Casakina as kind of the future. Well, it hasn't quite panned out for Casakina, but she's got to stay confident if she can. She's got a whole bunch of tricks up her sleeve. I think she can do some good things. Victoria Azarenka is number 27 in the rankings. I've been very impressed with her reascension back to the game's elite players. Second best win percentage last year behind Ash Barty at 76%. Vika Azarenka had the second best win percentage last year. So she made the US Open final just a couple of years ago. A few seasons back, she was outside of the top 200 after giving birth. But we know Azarenka, she's an all-time fighter. She's got that legendary baseline game. So we hope to still see her for a couple more years as well. Number 28 in the rankings has been my favorite player to watch for the last 5 years or so. That's Elena Ostapenko. I've loved her game ever since she won the 2017 French Open. But pretty much everything I said yesterday regarding Denis Shapovalov's game, ditto. Same goes for Ostapenko. She's got to be a little bit mentally tougher, kind of hang in there, avoid some simple errors in critical moments. I think the difference between Ostapenko and Shapovalov is Ostapenko, she's not the all-around talent that Shapo is. She's a pure shot maker from the back of the court. Ostapenko, she has to redline. She's got to go for every shot, and that's in her DNA. I don't think she doesn't read the game quite like an Osaka or a Serena or like a Daniil Medvedev on the men's side. She doesn't quite have a feel for the game as well, so she's got to rely on her great shot-making ability. She doesn't have the movement, the defensive ability that I believe that Shapovalov has. So it's a little bit interesting for Ostapenko, but I just think if she can kind of pull back on the reins just a little bit, we could see her get back into the top 10. She was a player who made the WTA finals not too long ago, and Ostapenko ended the year really strong with a semifinal appearance at Indian Wells, so I'm hoping she continues that. 29 on our list, Danielle Collins, 2 titles in 2021 in Palermo and San Jose. Had a nice win over the world number 1 Ash Barty in Adelaide. And number 30 is Tamara Zidanšek, the Roland Garros semifinals. and her first ever WTA title boosted the Slovenian up in the rankings. She had that great match, though, at Roland Garros in the quarters, beating Paula Bedosa 8-6 in the third, so she's up to the top 30. And I want to get to a few players outside of the top 30 now, including Serena Williams, and then I'll make some Grand Slam predictions here in just a sec. So that's the top 30, and let's look at a few key players this season outside of the top 30 on the women's side. Obviously, you have to mention Serena Williams. Just going to give her the benefit of the doubt just because she is the greatest of all time, those 23 majors in the trophy case. 40 years of age, though, now, and she last played at Wimbledon. We saw her have that very heartbreaking hamstring injury, had to retire in the first round against, who did she play? Alexandria Sasnovich, but she hasn't played since the first round of Wimbledon, and she's not going to play at the Aussie Open. Serena says her body just not quite physically ready yet, but yeah, I was having some fun looking up some stats for Serena this week. I think one of the most impressive things about her dominance just in all facets of the game, on all surfaces, and all majors. Serena is top 6 in both wins, all-time wins, and all-time win percentage at all 4 Grand Slams. She's top 6 in match wins and win percentage. I mean, Serena, you ask me who the GOAT is, I think on the women's side it's pretty clear. And, you know, the health is starting to wane. She's 40 years old, but semifinals at the past 2 hardcourt majors. Just the Australian Open 12 months ago, Serena was making the semis, also at the US Open in 2020. And I know she probably wants to get at least one more major, have that nice post-pregnancy achievement of being a Grand Slam champion as a mother, but kind of the same thing when I was talking about with Federer yesterday. I think she just wants to go out on her own terms, kind of just have one last hurrah, be healthy for a few months here, and then I can't see her playing too much longer, though. I think this might be the last season for Serena. Her coach, Patrick Mouratoglou, has kind of hinted at that as well, but hopefully she gets physically up to speed by at least Wimbledon. You got to think Wimbledon's still Serena's best chance to win a 24th major title. One of my other favorite players, Bianca Andrescu, also will not be at the Australian Open. BB, she's her ranking's all the way up to 46 in the world, and she's missing the Aussie Open, though, taking a mental break. She said she's got to reset, recover, and grow a little bit. It's been a very challenging last 2 years for Andrescu, getting hit with COVID and having to isolate with that last year. And then she's had some family health issues and also more injuries for her. The list just continues to build on itself, the injuries to Andrescu. Last season, it was that foot problem that forced her to retire in the Miami final against Ash Barty. I was so excited for that match, and for her body to let her down again, it was pretty disappointing to see. So hopefully she has she gets refreshed over this little break. She's got the 2 things that always impress me about Andrescu: the mental toughness and just her overall fight, her will to win. I feel like she wants it more than anyone else on the tour. I would love to see one day we get an Andrescu versus Osaka Aussie Open or US Open, just a hardcourt major final between those two. I think it would produce some epic fireworks. That's my dream women's Grand Slam final in the WTA. I think that would be awesome. One other player I want to mention, though, outside of the top 30, Clara Towson, the young Dane. She's at 44, just 19 years of age, went from 152 to 44 in the rankings, second biggest climber after Ribakina. 2 titles last year, both were on indoor hard courts, where she was an electrifying 18-2 on the year. She's got top 10 potential in the next few years, so watch out for Clara Towson. And then, not necessarily one specific player, but I was kind of skimming through the WTA rankings, looking at like players 50 through 100, and we're going to have some very dangerous floaters early on, especially in the first half of this year at the Aussie Open, and certainly at Roland Garros and Wimbledon as well. We got some dangerous floaters coming, though, because Madison Keys has fallen all the way down to 56. Sloane Stephens at 65. Donna Vekic coming off knee surgery. Vekic has fallen to 68. We've got Amanda Anisimova all the way up at 78. She was just in the top 20, I feel like, 12 months ago. Diana Yastremska coming off a suspension, so she's 99 in the world. My point is there's going to be some really dangerous unseeded players, particularly at the Australian Open, that the top 10 players are going to want to avoid. You do not want to see a player like Sloane Stephens or Madison Keys in the first round of a major. So, ditto goes for all those other players. Vekic, Anisimova, Yastremska. Those are some big hitters, some offensive players with great forehands, and I can't wait to see when the Aussie Open draw comes out in about 2 weeks' time. Actually, exactly 2 weeks from right now, this Thursday that I'm recording this, we will have the Australian Open draw, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we get some tasty and entertaining first round matchups. But speaking of the Aussie Open, I want to end this YouTube Live by making some Grand Slam predictions. So, it's like I said yesterday with the men, it's so tough to predict the women's Grand Slam champions. Honestly, obviously on the men's side, you can just say Djokovic or Nadal and Medvedev, and you look like a genius. Women, it's a little bit tougher to predict. It also makes it a little bit more fun in that regard. But Australian Open, I think as long as Naomi Osaka is in a good headspace, she's probably the favorite. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Garbiñe Muguruza wins the 2022 Australian Open title. I just love the way she finished this past season. Again, she seems to be in just a really good, personal life-wise, and that relationship with Conchita Martinez. Looks super comfortable on the court right now. She's got a lot of unfinished business. If Muguruza ends her career as only a two-time Grand Slam champion, I'm sorry, but that's underwhelming. I mean, her potential is so much greater than that. So I think she can easily pick up 2, 3, 4 Grand Slam titles in the next 5 years. Look out for Mugu down under. At Roland Garros, I'm going to say that if Simona Halep is healthy, I really like her chances, but I'll go a little bit more on the wild side. I'm not going to pick Iga or some of the other top favorites. I will say that Paula Bedosa wins the 2022 French Open champion. She's grown up on the European red clay for most of her life. She's used to playing on that surface. She loves it. So give me Bedosa to win Roland Garros. At Wimbledon, I honestly have no idea for Wimbledon. I think I'll just play this one a bit safer. Say Ash Barty gets her third Grand Slam title, repeats as Wimbledon champ. Also, look out for Angie Kerber. She came so close last year. I think Kerber, though, still ripe for another great Wimbledon run. And then the U.S. Open, which is traditionally the more wide open Grand Slam on both the men's side and the women's side. We've seen some crazy runs. Osaka breaking through there in 2018, Andrescu in 19, Ribakina last year in that all teenage and all unseeded U.S. Open final. I'm going to say, again, Osaka's going to be the favorite, and that's the easy pick. But if it's not Osaka, I'm going to say Belinda Bench is your 2022 U.S. Open champ. I really like what she did the second half of this past season, playing well, obviously at the Olympics when she won the gold. And she's made a couple of deep runs, really 3 going back to the mid-2010s. She's made some deep runs at the U.S. Open, so Bencic should be feeling good there. My year-end number 1, or actually I'll say WTA Finals first. I think I just put down Barty as my champ for the WTA Finals. Play it safe there. And my year-end number 1, initially when I was thinking about my predictions, I was like, all right, Ash Barty is probably the good betting choice to finish the year number 1. But I kind of have talked myself over the past hour. I think I've talked myself into Muguruza as the year-end number 1. Her ceiling is just so high for me. And if she's healthy all year, and if she stays locked in, Mugu, I like her prospects a little bit more than Barty. I think she's the only person, though, who can challenge Barty if they both stay healthy for all of 2022. Muguruza is the only player who can match Barty's production on all 3 surfaces, because we've still yet to see it from Osaka. I don't even like Osaka's furthest progress at both Wimbledon and Roland Garros can't be more than the fourth round. Now that I think about it, so Osaka's still got some work to do on grass and clay, and just some of the other players. Plishkeva has she's not starting the year at the Australian Open. A couple other big name players are out, like Serena, like Andrescu. So give me Muguruza to finish the year number 1. I don't know what you guys think about that, if that's crazy or if that's not crazy enough. But I just, like I said, all 3 surfaces, Mugu coming in hungry. Osaka only played 11 tournaments last year, so I don't quite want to go out on a limb and say that Osaka finishes the year number 1, because there's a couple question marks there in terms of the long term. But I'll say Muguruza takes the ultimate number 1 title at the end of the year, and that's pretty much all I got. I really thank you guys for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this YouTube live. I'll probably do some more in the future, but for now, I'll probably get back to my shorter preview and informational videos. But it was nice to just kind of sit for an hour, chop it up, take stock, and give some of my thoughts about these top 30 players, and make some predictions for the year ahead. So, cheers.